Hello, and welcome to Pink Moon Lodge, Episode 8, with your hosts, Amy Kruzic and Patti Lucia. In this week's episode, we visit the Bible story about Sodom and Gomorrah and explored how this story offers lessons for the modern day. Enjoy! All right. Hello, welcome to Pink Moon Lodge, Episode 8. Hi, everybody. This is Amy Kruzic and
Patti Lucia.
Yeah, and in today's topic, we will be chatting about the biblical story, Sodom and Gomorrah. And we're going to question about, are we living in a modern day Sodom and Gomorrah? And I brought a little friends with me too from outside.
Yes, I see that.
Yeah.
Very pretty. It's nice. We need balance. If we're going to be talking about dark things, we should have, light,
bring it
fragrant things. Do they have a scent, your flowers?
They don't.
Okay. Well,
no,
they're pretty.
They don't. They're just pretty. Yeah.
They're pretty. And I notice you have a little flower ring on too. I
do. And I didn't even coordinate that, honestly.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
You are just a little sunflower today, Amy.
Oh my goodness.
Just
Patti.
a little sunflower. All right.
I have to be for this topic.
Yes, for this topic. We needed.
Yeah.
Yes, we need all we need all the lightness and brightness and so forth for this topic. So again, I want to and we want to, if you are joining us today, we on YouTube, on Rumble, on a podcast, we thank you. Thank you so much for joining us on our quirky little journey. We are, as I always say, we are two ordinary women having our own journeys of awakening and living into the best humans we can be. And what we're doing is just having these weekly conversations about things that we're discovering, things that we're pondering. And if you if you get a laugh from it, because we do stumble and fumble, and so if you get a laugh or a bit of inspiration from us, that's absolutely wonderful, and we are grateful for that. Now, while I'm at it, if you are listening and you have not yet subscribed, if you can hit that subscribe button, that really helps us with the algorithms. We would like to reach a broader audience. We are a new podcast and YouTube show, so we are currently building our audience. And if you find what you're listening to in our conversations inspirational or worth listening to, please hit the subscribe button and also, hit the like button. That really helps us with our reach, and we so appreciate that. So,
and comments too. We love comments.
We like comments. We don't really get comments, but we'd like to get them. So, at any rate, let's jump into this now. You might be wondering why in the world Amy and I are talking about Sodom and Gomorrah this morning. Well, I'm going to be honest. I recently made a commitment to myself that I was going to read the Bible cover to cover. That I thought it was worth reading the Bible cover to cover, for, because I really wanted to, at this point in my life, understand what it says and its impact on so many humans. And also because I have been an English teacher for so many years and love literature, that I wanted to look at it from a literary perspective as well. And also because I understand and believe that the way humans conceptualize our world and our reality is through metaphor. I was very interested in how the Bible uses metaphor and parable to teach lessons. And so that was my motivation. And I just happened to be talking to Amy about how I'm still in Genesis. I'm still, because it takes a while, it's not a fast read. I was in Genesis and I was mentioning to Amy, it's like, look, I just read the whole Sodom and Gomorrah story. And I gotta tell you, I'm fascinated with this story. There are so many layers of meaning
Yeah.
in this story. There's so many, because I'm, as a English teacher, that's what I do. I look at a story, and then you have the surface meaning, and then you've got, the deeper meaning, some often through symbol and metaphor. And the Bible is just so full of that, and that's what makes it, fascinating. So, I looked at that story and thought, wow, this has many different layers of meaning. And when I mentioned that to you, Amy, you were like,
Yeah.
let's do
Let's do it.
let's
And
do
the
a
funny
podcast
thing
on it.
was, honestly, I have never really read the Bible.
Mhm. That's
So,
because we were raised Catholic.
yeah, and so you
Ah,
don't
it's like Catholics don't read the Bible.
no, you just listened to it at mass and that
Yeah,
was it,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
You got a
yeah,
little bit there. So
yeah.
I was, like, fascinated. I'm like, "Yeah, Patty, let's crack it open.
Let's crack it open and
Crack the
see.
Bible open and,
Yes.
let's see what it," and it was a very fascinating story. I'm so glad that you brought it up because
It's very,
yeah.
very
So let's
fascinating. And I'm finding many of the stories very fascinating. But so I do want to tell our audience, we
yeah.
are not coming from a place of being scholars, having
No.
experts, having all the answers. We are again on our own journey of awakening and discovery. And this just happens to be a recent discovery that we wanted to delve into, and we
Yeah.
want to share our thoughts with you. So
Yeah.
again, and I'm not, like, I was raised Christian and then I became spiritual. I was no, I
Yeah.
was raised Catholic. I was raised Catholic in a very unusual situation. My mother is Catholic. My father was Baptist. I went to two churches for a while. It was
Mm.
terrible. And then when I turned 18, I moved away. I just kind of, put all of that behind me. I didn't like organized religion at all. And then after some years, became more spiritual. So I wasn't interested in
Yeah.
organized religion. I was more interested in spirituality. And now what I find at this point in my life is I'm looking. It's like, let me take a look at another look at
Yeah, and what it
that
looks like
those
now
what it
from our
looks.
perspective. Yes,
Exactly,
I
exactly.
know.
And so I find myself, doing things now that I thought, wow, I never thought that I would want to read the Bible from cover to cover, but here I am doing that,
Right.
and gleaning some very interesting things. So again, my both of our Amy and I are both on journeys of faith, and we go where we're guided.
Yeah.
There are doors that open, there's guidance that's happening, and and we go on faith. And the thing is you never know
You never
where
know.
where those nudges from spirit are going to nudge you to.
Yep.
And it just so happens that this is where this is leading me. So I find that all very interesting. And
Yeah.
we thought, well, let's share let's share this with our
Yeah.
audience, say what we're discovering, and some of our little aha moments, and how this is connected to our culture. When we look around, if we watch the news, I tried not to, but
Yeah.
we are aware of what's going
Yeah.
on in our culture and in the West. And what are the parallels? And of course both
Yeah.
of us agreed, it's like, oh my goodness, there are more
Yeah.
parallels than
Yes.
we'd like to acknowledge there. um,
Yes. Yes. And we're
so
talking about it during Lionsgate, Patty. Lionsgate tomorrow at
yeah,
8/8. So,
yeah.
very interesting
Yeah, very
that
interesting.
you
Very,
bring
very interesting.
these fires in because I feel like I am burning off
Mm,
old,
yeah,
old ways.
yeah.
So, perfect.
Good, good.
I like
No, it
it.
is. It is
It's
perfect
it's a
timing.
it is perfect
It
timing.
is
It is
perfect
'cause
timing. We'll talk a little bit about Lionsgate too.
yeah.
It's interesting for people who don't know, Lionsgate is the 8/8 of
Mhm.
of August. It is understood as a gateway
Yep.
to
Serious.
to Sirius, the where the sun lines up and everything. What's really interesting, Amy, is how how prominent gates and gateways
Yeah.
are in the Bible.
Yes.
Gates. And
That's I
actually in the story that we're
in this
about to
story.
share, there's the whole there are these
Lot.
gates. And
Hmm.
so gates and gateways are very, very important. There, you think of a gate, it's like keeping people up, but it also it
Keeps
lets
people.
in. It goes, both ways. You can enter or you can
Yeah.
exit. And there's symbolically, how you talk about like the symbols, the symbolism
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
gates and gateways. And so the Lion's Gate, is because it's in the month of Leo, and it's called the Lion's Gate, but it is you can go, and then there's energies also coming
Yeah.
in and through. And but at any rate,
Yeah. So that.
we're in the time of the Lion's Gate. So,
Mhm.
what I want to do is just give a little, for those, and I think most people have heard of the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, but unfortunately, they haven't really read it. They've just heard different
No.
things about it. So I want to
Yeah.
and that was me. That was
Yeah. That
me.
was me.
And
That
it
was me.
was really awesome to actually read the story, right? Now I know
Yeah.
it's referred to, as Amy will point out later, it's referred to again in the New Testament, but this
Yeah.
is an Old Testament story. It does happen in Genesis. And so what we have these two, almost like these twin cities, Sodom and Gomorrah, and they're located in a valley. And you have Abraham, who is blessed by the creator, by God.
Yes.
Abraham is, he is seen, he is adored by the creator. And you have Abraham's brother Lot. Now Abraham is living a righteous life, but Lot makes some different decisions. So
But hold
Lot.
on, Patty. I read where he was his nephew.
Oh, is it his nephew? That's his
Yeah. I
connection?
just read that.
My
Yeah.
my bad. Okay.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it's his
Just so.
relative, right? So they're
Yeah.
related. And so Lot goes and decides that he is going to, and at first I thought he settled just outside of Sodom and Gomorrah, but actually he settled in. So
And
he settled inside the gates, and the gates are referred to here. So he settles there. He has a wife and two daughters.
yeah.
Now, and then the Lord goes to Abram and he says, "Look, Abraham, it's like, look, this Sodom and Gomorrah thing, they've descended into too much wickedness, and we're going to
Yeah.
have to, I may have to destroy it." And so Abraham does this kind of bargaining.
Yeah.
Well,
He
what if,
pleads.
you could find 50 people? Would you destroy 50 people, 50 righteous people, with the wicked? And oh no, I wouldn't do that. Well, what if you found 40? Would you, and he was like, no, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Well, what if you found 30? And he's kind of going
Yeah. He
down
goes down.
to 10. And he
Yeah.
says, no, I wouldn't per so there you have it. I'm not going to destroy it. If we can find 10 righteous people, I'm not going to destroy it. But obviously that didn't happen. Now Lot and his wife and his two daughters lived there. And so
Yeah.
these the night before, it's all supposed to happen, right? These two angels, angels of
These
destruction, angels of like,
two.
we're the guys who are given the task of, burning shit up, I guess. I don't
I
know. So
guess.
anyway, so they go in, and Lot is waiting for them at the gate.
Yeah.
Right. So Lot is waiting for them at the gate, and they say, well, we're going to go and we're going to stay in the town center tonight, and then we'll take care of our, but you need to, they're saying we need to, you need to leave the city. And Lot says, no, no, come stay
Yeah.
with me. So they go to his house, where his wife and his two daughters are.
Okay. Can I
Right.
just say one thing about
Yeah.
hospitality was very important back then.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why Lot was like, no, stay with me.
Yeah.
I'll feed you. You can
Yeah.
have a night
You
here.
don't, you
Because
don't need to, you don't need to
that was important.
You don't need to sleep in the streets.
No, no, no.
Now,
And I don't think it was safe either. You
well,
think?
well, it probably wasn't safe for normal humans, but these guys were,
Yeah. Yeah.
they weren't normal humans.
They weren't.
They weren't humans.
Yeah.
So they probably could have handled it,
Yeah.
right?
Probably could have.
But Lot invites him to his home. Now, what's what's interesting, even before the craziness happens there, um, the two daughters of Lot are engaged to be married.
Mhm.
And they're told, listen, we're going to flee the city, and you've got to bring your men with you. And the guys are like, nah, you know, nah, we don't want to. And I thought, wow, that's really
Yeah.
interesting. So the two men that they were engaged to decided that they would rather stay in the city than come away
Yeah.
with Lot's daughters. And that was like an eye opener for me. I was like, okay, what does that say about these men? And what
Yeah.
does that say about Lot's daughters?
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
want to, so you don't want to go off and have like a happy, safe life somewhere else,
I know.
with Lot's daughters. You would rather stay in this, in this kind of this wicked city.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that was their choice. So you have these two, angel guys hanging out in Lot's house, and of course he's making a feast for them. He's making
Hmm.
them food, and the daughters are there, and the wife is there, and so forth. And then what you have is this knock on the door.
Hmm.
This group of men, from the city, apparently saw these two men enter,
Hmm.
and they wanted to have their way with them. So here
Yeah.
is a situation where they come in, they're two strangers, they're new to the city, and the men in the city see them as, these two, it's fresh meat. I'm not,
Yeah. I don't know how else you
fresh
say that. Yeah.
fresh meat, and they demand
Yeah.
that a lot let them out so that they can have
Yeah.
relations with them. All right.
What Lot does is says,
Yeah. Then it
take
gets
my
it
daughters.
gets even weirder, because
Yeah.
Lot says, listen, not them. I'll give you my two
Yeah.
daughters, and you
Yeah.
can do whatever it is you want.
What do you want to
So,
do?
so basically, whatever you were going to do to these two guys, you can do to my daughters.
Yeah.
They're virgins. Both my daughters are virgins.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And and I'm like, what did so there are these things that kind of like, what the heck is going on here? So you have these two daughters whose betrothed decide that they don't want to go with them when they're escaping the city.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
you have a father who offers his daughters up, to protect
Wow.
angels, which honestly didn't need protection.
Yeah.
But at any rate, so you could say, well, his commitment to hospitality may have
May have
been
gone.
more than then, it was very, but his how I
What were
looked
his
at it.
thoughts, Patty? What were his thoughts about that? Why? I
Well,
just can't put.
here's what I think,
Yeah.
and we're
Okay.
gonna get to it.
Yeah.
I think that this is an example of a man who thought he could live in a absolutely wicked, debased place without it affecting him.
Mm.
And every member of that family was affected
Yeah.
by the wicked environment that they lived in. So
Yeah.
the daughters were, and we're going to get to what the daughters do, because the daughters do some weird, I mean, like, what? So the daughters are,
Yeah.
they
I
have
know you're.
very poor
Oh,
judgment.
you're right.
Very
You're
poor
right.
judgment. Lot has very poor, like, what is it for a father to
Okay.
offer up his daughters to be raped?
So
Like,
here's my thought about that.
yeah.
Well, to be raped, I know, but
So I
maybe
don't,
his thought was because it's not two men. Uh, uh, the domination of the sodomizing men. That that it's kind of okay with a man and a woman because, that's a man and a woman. Does that make sense? So, he'd rather do that than commit the sin of sodomizing men. I don't know.
Mm,
That's kind of how
mm,
I see it, and so he couldn't think of any other way to go against God, but to be a man and a woman seemed better to him than
mm.
2 men.
Yeah, I mean, that
I
is
mean,
one
I'm
way
thinking
to
of
look at it. I'm not sure I would go in that direction, but I appreciate like that. Now, I will say this about, because the gay community is always up in arms about this
yeah, yeah, yeah.
about this story. But um when you the act of what they were doing, and you see this a lot, that this is not, these are not love relationships.
Well, no,
This is about dominating.
dominance. Yeah,
This is about dominating, debasing,
yeah.
controlling,
Subservient.
raping. This is
Yeah,
really about that. And it's like, these are two men who we haven't done that to, and so would they need that, we need to, so it could be a reflection of how people in this place thought of strangers coming in. You're a stranger, well, we're going to initiate you. If you're going to be in this, you're going to be initiated, and in order for you to be here, well, guess what,
yeah.
this is what you got to go to. It kind of sounds like Hollywood to me, but hey,
I know.
we haven't got
I
that far yet. If you're gonna be in this town,
Yeah, you gotta do it this way.
yeah, you gotta, guess what you
My
gotta
way.
do if you're gonna be in this town. Guess what you gotta do, and
But we have to
we're
but
gonna
see,
videotape it. But anyway, let's not
that's where
go.
I was thinking of that homosexuality back then wasn't what it is today. So that's why I felt like a lot was going against Abraham, was going against God. And so I don't know. That was my thought, because homosexuality is accepted today.
Yeah,
Well,
but
in some part,
yeah,
in
yeah,
some
but yeah.
I
So
don't know. Does that make
um
sense? I don't know. I'm sorry if I'm not making sense, but
no, you are. My hesitance is that I have some controversial thoughts
yeah. Yeah, no.
about that. I mean, because that are a little unexpected, but I think that I don't even this wasn't even a
About that.
this
Wasn't even
wasn't
about that.
even about homosexuality.
No. It was
This
about
this was
rape.
about, right. This is about sexual deviance and wickedness.
Yeah.
So, there's a scene from Shawshank Redemption where the
Mm.
main character is raped by this group that is called, I think they're called the ladies or something like that, right? And it's a group of 3 or 4 men, and so he's gang raped by these men. And there's a scene where he's sitting with his friend, played by oh my goodness, the guy.
Morgan Freeman? No.
Yeah, I love him. And
Oh,
Morgan
the other guy.
Freeman,
I know who you mean.
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
I know
And
who
so Morgan Freeman, so the guy is talking about, like, um being raped by he mentions gay men or something like that. And he said, oh no, this wasn't about being
Mm.
gay. In order to be gay, you have to be human. They're not
Mm.
they're not
Yeah,
human. These
yeah.
guys are not human. And so, and that wasn't about being gay. That was about being wicked and dominating and
Yeah.
inflicting pain and humiliation
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
someone else. In other words, you will be my slave, and the way that I am going to mark you is this way.
Yeah. And so
And
it
this
doesn't
is
matter man to man, woman to woman, woman and man. It doesn't matter.
yeah, big.
Doesn't matter.
I'm
Yeah.
sure that the women were treated
Yeah.
much the same in
Yeah.
this place too. But it's it's a whole other level of wickedness when
Yeah.
you are, when you are subverting men this way, who come in,
Yeah.
and this is their initiation. And so they basically wanted to initiate, in other words, they were trying to insist that the only way that these men could stay in this city is if they were initiated by this group of men. They
Yeah.
had to
And I was just thinking
submit
of
to
the
that.
human aspect of what Lot, I don't even know what his thoughts were. That,
Yeah. Well,
I was just,
so but then
yeah.
what happens is, he offers his daughters, and they're like, no, we
Yeah.
want them. And so, and they are
Yeah.
pressing against Lot, because they're going to force their way in.
Yeah, they
And
do.
so what these two angels do is they grab Lot, pull him in, and then strike these men blind. So these men are blinded in an instant, and they can't even find the door. They are
Mhm.
wandering around in their own blindness. And that's why I
I
think
didn't
that,
read that.
yeah, they were
I
struck
didn't see that.
blind.
Okay.
Yeah, they were struck blind. And so
Oh,
Lot
I
is
see. Yeah,
yeah,
I see that now.
Lot is spared, his daughters are spared. Um
The
and
sons-in-law, the sons-in-law were spared.
well, the sons-in-law weren't there. I think they had
That's
already
right. They were
been with
out. They were
that.
out.
We're out.
They were out.
We're hanging
Yeah.
out, in town, whatever.
Oh, right. Yes.
So yeah, they had already abandoned the
And Lot
daughters.
went to the town to try to find them.
Did he?
They wanted, he says, hurry. He goes out and finds them.
Mm.
I don't know. That's what I see
And
here.
yeah, but they don't want to go. Yeah. Yeah, they don't.
Oh, because he warns them that he's about to destroy the city.
Yeah, yeah. So
They thought he was
they've been
joking. Yeah, they
yeah,
thought he
yeah,
was
yeah. They
joking.
thought he was
Yeah, yeah.
kidding.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Ha ha.
funny old man. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, see ya.
Okay. Yeah, that's
Right.
right.
So then okay, so then the next day, and then what Lot wants, Lot is told to go into the mountains, go into the mountains. And even then he's like, well, there's this little town very close I can get to. It's Zoar. I can get to Zoar. So
Yeah.
how about if I go there? And they're like, okay, all right, you can go to Zoar. And they agree to that. And then they say, but you've got to get out. And they literally take Lot and his daughters, and by the hand, and kind of drag him to the gates of the city. And you've got to go now.
Yeah.
And so they're on their way. And of course they say, don't look back. And
And the wife looks back.
and the wife looks back. So they're, burning up the city like a furnace. And she's leaving, and she looks back, and people are like, oh,
Yeah.
what is that? But think about this. Think about if something horrible is
Hmm.
being, where you were, like you've just escaped a
Yeah.
horrible place that is about to be destroyed, right? And they say, just don't look back. Don't look back. And you've probably seen this in scenes in movies. Just don't look
Oh,
back.
yeah.
Don't
Don't look
look
back.
back. Don't look back, and because it's being blown up or whatever. And people are just booking it out. Like they're just,
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
not looking back. They're making a beeline for safety. And yet and this is why I think Lot's wife was trifling. So why would what is your motivation
Well,
for looking
okay.
back?
I'm
What are
going to
you
tell you
what are you looking at? What are you
because
looking for?
I read where she was a sodomite. So to me, it would be like, give up your Italian heritage. We're going.
Hmm.
Now that's in our blood. Like that's in our bloodline. So she had to look back one last time because it was like, I just need one more look because that would be hard to leave, you were, that was your birthplace. That was where, I don't think Lot was a sodomite, but she was, I read.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so
Sodomite meaning someone who was
the
who was
people
born
that
and
live
raised.
in
Hmm.
Sodom. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
So she was born and raised there.
Hmm. Hmm.
There's a lot of people back in my hometown that never left.
Hmm.
I did. I didn't look back once
Right.
when I left, just
Right.
like you. We didn't
Yeah.
look back
You
because
don't
I
look
knew
back, you
their
keep
path.
going.
Yeah, we kept going, but I
Hmm.
still have, family that still lives in that small
Hmm.
town.
Hmm. So
So
then
it's hard for them
why
to leave.
so you're saying she looked back because
Just
she
wanted
was and
one
this
last look.
she was still attached.
She was still
She
attached.
was still attached to a place. So this place of kind of like wickedness and debasement
Was it
had
always like
had
that?
had seeds in her heart. In other words, if she hadn't looked back and she continued to go, would she have plagued Lot with being distressed and
Yeah.
sad and
Yeah.
oh, my town, my city, my
Yes.
people, oh my
My
God, I
people.
miss them, blah blah blah. Would that have happened? Would that have happened? You know, and so in that moment, she kind of expresses where her heart is,
Yeah.
and it's still with
Always there.
it's there. And so better that she, be turned into a pillar of salt and not continue. Better that she
And no,
stay there. That
exactly.
she
That's
stay
why
there.
I think God thought, let her stay here then, but I'm going to turn you into a pillar of salt.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think
Which
that,
is
yeah.
yeah, which is kind of interesting. Like symbolically, metaphorically,
Yeah. It's interesting.
that's kind of interesting that it would be that it would be salt, you
Hmm.
know.
Salt
Um
of the earth.
Yes, salt of the earth, because when you think about salt, salt is purification.
Yeah.
Salt is in so so is this, the way that she was, kind
Right.
of
Right.
made pure
Rather than
again.
being burned,
Yeah.
I think the
It's
pillar
better
of
than,
salt.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
So yeah.
so they leave, and so what we see is, okay, so there's Lot, there's his wife, and then there's his two daughters. Now once they're out and they're safe, the daughters get in their head
Oh my gosh.
that
They did live in
mm,
a cave, Patty. They
yeah.
did. They
Okay.
were lonely.
So
Right.
they
They were.
went. I don't know how long they were there, but anyway, they went to Zoar, but Zoar was so close that the smoke was coming in, so they left Zoar because they were
Mhm.
frightened. It was too close to the death and destruction. So they went up into the mountains, found a cave, and they went into the cave.
Yeah.
And we don't know how long they were,
No.
how long they were there, but the daughters got in their mind that well, we don't have men in our lives. How are we going to carry on the our family lineage? So let's get dad drunk and sleep with him.
Yeah.
And so the first one
Yeah.
did it, and then the second one did it, and then they
They had
became
kids.
pregnant. They became pregnant with their father's child. Now I also think that that is really poor judgment on there. It's kind of like, well, so you thought that nowhere else in the world would
Yeah.
there be men that you could marry and have
Yeah.
children? So your only option
Yeah.
was dad, when there was the land of, where Abraham lived, and all,
Yeah.
there were other options for them. So it seemed like it was really short-sighted on their part, and it was an expression of their own corruption. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, so
Yeah.
the mom kind of expresses her own corruption. So
Mhm.
the mom was corrupted by, obviously, by the place she lived. Lot was corrupted by the place that he lived, and the daughters had been corrupted by the place that they lived. Like
Yeah.
this place, even though they were spared, and they got out, it doesn't mean that they weren't already in some ways corrupted by the place
Exactly.
that they lived, being, being that close and being in the midst of this. They might not have fully participated in all of the wickedness of the city, but they were still corrupted by it. So, almost like
Did
and I
they
think that
know? Did
I think
did
like
they know
it
back
had
then?
been normalized. It was almost like normalized to them. This wickedness was normalized
Yeah. So
to
why
them.
not with dad? I mean,
Yeah,
maybe
why not? Right.
maybe incest was prevalent back then. We don't
Mhm.
know.
Or, why not offer my daughters,
Right.
for that? Why not? So there were
Could be
these
payback too.
right, because he was, yeah. Yeah,
you
it
know,
could have been.
it could have been.
And the wife who was kind of trifling in her own way, and expressing her own attachment
Yeah.
to this, to this place. It's like you're not willing to walk away from,
Yeah.
this wicked place.
Yeah.
And so I found this whole story really, um
Mm,
there's just so much to it. And when you look at it, and so what I came away with was, we can think that we can and there was also, I will say that an element of almost like voyeurism or being entertained. Like, we're not going to participate in the wickedness, but maybe we're going to talk about it over breakfast, or we're going to watch it from our window. We're going to be
yeah.
entertained by it. We're going to be voyeurs, but we're not going to participate in it. No, we're not going to actually do it, but we're going to be in it. We're
Yeah.
gonna be witnesses to it, and maybe we're going to be entertained by watching it, or we're going to be voyeuristic in some way. But that, and that means that, well, but we're not actually doing it. And I think that that also speaks to a lot of how there are a lot of parallels in my mind in terms of like the normalization of things that
Yeah.
are kind of wicked in a way, and unnatural,
Still going
um,
on today.
still going on today. And also people who think, I'm not going to engage in these horrible acts, but I'm going to watch it and be entertained by it. And thinking that that won't corrupt us. Like,
So you're talking about like we just talked about the Sound of Freedom.
yeah, so a couple of
So
weeks
the
ago.
pedophiles watching, child porn and
Yeah.
engaging in that
Mm-hmm.
human
Mm-hmm.
trafficking.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah,
Yeah, so Hollywood is such
yeah,
a great example, I think, of a modern day Sodom and
yeah,
Gomorrah. So it's
yeah.
like, if you want to make it in this town, then we're gonna bring you to a party where you're gonna be
On an
asking,
island,
yeah,
on
on an
an
island.
island.
And we're gonna, you're gonna engage in some things that are basically your initiation, and that's your ticket, that's your passport to a successful career
Yeah,
in Hollywood. And
yeah.
so I do, I do think that Hollywood is such an example. It's not the only example, but
No, no, it's not.
it's so
But
when we, yeah, when we talk about the Sound of Freedom,
yeah,
and the people who are
yeah,
being so silent
yeah,
about this, or so disparaging,
yeah,
oh, it's
yeah.
this, oh, it's that, and you wonder, it's like, well, wait a minute, we're really talking about a kind of wickedness directed at children.
Mm,
Why aren't you, why why are you silent on
mm,
this?
mm.
And so I think like a lot of that is being exposed.
Yes, I
So
think it is. I think
yeah,
it is.
yeah.
I think it
So
is.
so that is definitely a parallel. But I think like in general in our culture, think about all of the things that have been normalized, you
Hmm.
know and
Hmm.
or we think, we'll go to church every Sunday, but during the week we'll,
Gossip and
maybe watch a little porn, or why,
yes.
or do some gaming where we're like, we're racking up the kills, and
Yeah,
or we're watching, we're entertained in, by movies that show this and that and this,
yeah.
and we think, that doesn't affect me. I can still be live a good and righteous life. And I think for me that was one
That's
of,
yeah.
go ahead.
No, no, no.
Yeah.
I was just saying of what we were talking about before. We got on here was the entities. When you're in like a low part
Oh,
and it
yeah.
opens up the gate. So like when you're on those virtual games and you're killing and killing and killing, well, your
Yeah.
vibration is low, and so it brings in
Yeah.
those
You know,
entities.
that's right, and we didn't talk
We didn't
about
get
that,
into
but
that.
we
Yeah,
talked about it pre-show.
we
We
did.
were talking about, like, how we both believe that one of the big factors in Sodom and Gomorrah were the unseen entities that
Yeah.
were really dominating, like the demonic energies
Hmm.
that were dominating and influencing the people there. And
Yeah.
so if you have widespread drunkenness, then
Yeah.
that is fertile
That,
ground
yes, they
for
just,
entities to come in, and now they're at the helm and
yeah.
they're driving the boat and doing all kinds of things that people might not even remember the next
No,
day. But you have
our
you know
guards are down, right? Our
yeah,
guards are down. The gate's
yeah,
open.
yeah, the gate is open, and so you have an environment where it becomes more and more fertile for these kind of demonic entities, and people may have them attached to them. They are everywhere, and they're kind of running the show. So who's ever in charge of the city may be controlled by it. Who's ever, I mean, like, it had
Yeah.
just been reduced, and so in a way, and I do think that that is also true in Hollywood. I think you've got a
Yeah.
lot of demonic entities running
Mhm,
amok in that
mhm.
town, and I think that the turning Sodom and Gomorrah into a furnace was also about not only kind of leveling the wickedness, but also purging the demonic entities from that place.
Yes, I was just Patty, I know, because I always thought the New Testament was about this mean God. But
Yeah.
here, how could he burn down a city? But we were talking
Mm-hmm.
about the entity aspect of it. God
Mm-hmm.
was doing that service
Mm-hmm.
of getting rid of things that they could not
We didn't even
see.
see. We didn't even
Didn't even
know.
know was
Didn't
living in there.
have the sophistication to
No, that
understand
we
it.
no, today
Mm-mm.
we know that
Mm-mm.
can be when we're vulnerable, when
Yeah.
we're open, we leave our gates open, our back doors open,
Mm-hmm.
that things can get in.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So things like drinking, doing drugs,
yeah,
I've seen videos of the disturbing stuff, and we've talked a little bit about, like, like events like Burning Man, where
yeah,
people
that's a
go
big
out into the
one.
desert and they're just doing copious amounts of drugs. And I've seen, like, a celebrity come back, well, actually a model, return, and I saw some video of her coming back from Burning Man, and I looked at that video and I said to myself, that's not her, she's possessed.
Yeah,
She's possessed.
yeah.
Everything about the way her body was moving, her facial
Wow,
features, everything was like, oh,
wow.
that's something else going on there. And it was really disturbing to see. So I think when you go to to places where there are lots of drugs
Mhm,
being had, where there's a lot of drinking, and also even like pharmaceuticals can make you
mhm,
can make
mhm.
you vulnerable. When people are watching porn, well, porn has been normalized.
Yeah,
Everybody watches porn. Porn has
yeah,
been normalized,
yeah.
and people don't realize how that really puts us in
Yes.
a position
Low, low
of a low
vibrational.
vibrational kind of state. So there are all kinds of things that make us vulnerable to that, and I do think that one of the aspects of the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah had to do with the unseen
Yeah, I believe that
demonic
now.
entities that also needed to be wiped out through
Yeah.
fire. Through
Through
fire.
fire,
Fires,
and not
fires
all
and
fire, not Burning Man fire, because you see, you have to have that spiritual hygiene about you. It's
mm-hmm,
a sovereign space for you,
mm-hmm.
and how just because you're burning things at Burning Man
Yeah.
doesn't mean that you're burning off
You know why
the
Burning Man
entity.
is, you know what they're burning? They're burning an effigy of a man.
Exactly.
So what is that?
Yeah.
Honestly, what does that say? So we want to burn up humans. Okay. All
Yeah.
right. So
Oh,
what does that
wow.
well, what does that
I
say?
don't
You know
know.
what I mean? It's like you're burning an
Yeah.
effigy of yourself. You're burning an effigy of yourself.
Yeah.
What is what do
Yeah.
what kind of message
Interesting.
are you sending out to any entities who might be hanging out, looking for an
Mm.
opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
looking for an opportunity. So, and I know that, that this could sound like, oh, Patty, you're being a prude or whatever, but like I do think that the time that we're living in right now, and you and I have talked about
Yeah.
this, I mean, this is about spiritual warfare. And I know they talk about other wars, are we going to war with Russia? We're going to war with China.
Mm-hmm.
What's happening with the war in Ukraine? And yes, those are all things perhaps to be concerned about. But I also think that they can distract us from the kind of spiritual warfare that
Yeah.
we are in right now. And how are we fortifying ourselves?
Yeah.
How are we leaving ourselves vulnerable, to to attacks on our very spirit and our very souls? And I think that is a lesson from from Sodom and Gomorrah that we can, take with us. Do we think that we can, brush elbows with
Mm-hmm.
with kind of with wickedness and not be corrupted in our own way? Do we
Mm-hmm.
think that we can participate in normalizing some of these things or ignoring some of these things without without it affecting us or leaving us open, to
Yeah. I mean, I feel that's the daily practice of
mm-hmm,
your daily practice, uh,
mm-hmm,
and your spiritual hygiene. And I
mm-hmm,
think Lion's Gate is that opportunity
mm-hmm,
with the energies being high is to take care of all that.
yep,
Take care of the little subtleties that you're missing that need to
mm-hmm,
be,
yeah.
remedied and resolved,
Yeah.
you
Yeah. And
know?
and also, like, how are you protecting and fortifying yourself every
Yeah.
day?
Yeah.
How are
Every
you
day.
keeping your vessel clean, and how are you fortifying yourself as you go out into the world? How are you
Mhm.
setting your intention?
Yep.
Um, where are you going in the world? Because a lot of times we'll go into places and we think, oh, this is a relatively clean place,
And it's not.
and it's not. And I honestly think, don't you think that when we at least open ourselves up to thinking in this framework, that we allow our inner guidance to tell
Mhm.
us? Because a
Mhm.
lot of times we kind of ignore that. We go
We
into a
do.
place and we might have a sense, but it's like, nah, and we ignore it and we move on. But how often have people walked in to a building, to a place, or to a house, and like been like, oh, this
Yeah.
feels this feels
Yeah.
a bit off, or been in situations or around certain people and feel like, this doesn't
Mhm.
feel quite right to me. And I think that this is a time when we need to kind of listen more to our
Mhm.
inner guidance, to do
So
whatever to keep our energy clean in ways like,
yes.
what are we consuming? What are we
Mhm.
consuming in terms of our food, and what are we consuming in terms of on our phones and on our televisions, and on what are we consuming in that way, because it all has, you know
Yeah.
um
Yeah. And not to
an
be
effect.
such a critic to yourself when you don't do it.
Yeah.
That's what I found. I don't become the self-critic or self-judge
Mm-hmm.
if I'm like, "Oh, I forgot today, I forgot." You know, you can't
Mm-hmm.
do that because that just does not help in
Right.
any way. It
Right.
doesn't help. It doesn't help. Just so
Right.
you know, like, you get back on track. "Okay, I'm back on track." Because
Mm-hmm.
there's times I've haven't done it, and there was probably reasons why, and I
Mm-hmm.
needed to go into that to actually
Absolutely.
see. Sometimes you need to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I
Yeah,
think that's, you're bringing up a really good point, which is that, we're vibrational beings. And when you talk
yeah,
about, like, how do we speak to ourselves? And one of the things that's really important to keep in mind is, like, when you think about speaking, you have these vocal cords that goes up. And if you
yeah,
hold your hand over your chest as you're speaking, you're going to see that everything you speak is vibrating within you. And so
mhm,
what that means is, what we speak out, we speak to ourselves.
mhm,
So if we're engaged in in nasty talk to others, or
Yeah.
judgmental talk, or whatever,
Yeah.
that's all, and so it doesn't even have to be directed at us, though sometimes it is directly directed at us,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. Yes.
And but sometimes it's directed outward, but it still has an impact on us. So, being like, when you think about the four agreements,
Mhm.
Ruel
Oh, I
Miguel
forget. Yeah.
Ruiz, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Miguel Ruiz, be impeccable with your words. This is
Yeah.
part of spiritual hygiene.
It
How
is.
impeccable are we with our words when we speak our words? Are we being true? Are we being honest? Are we being compassionate? Because that is all part of our own personal spiritual spiritual
It is.
hygiene. So we're
Yeah.
gonna
Just
we're gonna have a show on
yeah.
spiritual hygiene,
Yeah. We're gonna do
because we
that because
mention it a lot, but I think it would be worth
yeah,
going into all of the different ways that
that we do
people
that.
keep their vessel clean and protected, which is
Hmm.
really what we want. We want to keep our vessel
Yeah.
clean and protected. How do people do that? There are all kinds of ways. There are different traditions and different,
Yeah.
different spiritual practices. And so I
Yeah.
think we're going to have a show where we look at
Yeah.
that.
We talk about that. I think
I
so.
think
That
it's
would be good.
I think it's a time for
I
us
think
to,
time because we
it's
have brought it up quite a few times.
and also, I mean, we're living in a time if we're saying we're in the midst of a spiritual war, then how do you protect yourself in such a
Yeah.
war?
Yeah.
And so we'll talk
Yeah.
more.
I think that's great.
We'll talk more about it. And again, we are not experts. We are not saying,
No,
oh, do this because this is like the
we're not
right thing to do.
perfect.
We're
We're
not, we're
not
not at all.
perfect. We
We've
are
just,
human.
yeah, I mean, we've just been making discoveries along the way. And
Yeah.
and like I said at the beginning of the show, we are two ordinary women on our own journey of awakening and living into the very best humans we can be at this moment in human history. And we are sharing the journey with you. So
Yeah.
hopefully today we shared something that maybe gave you a little bit of something to think about, or
Hmm.
inspired you, or what have you. Hopefully you got some value from
Yeah.
sharing this conversation with us. I
And
hope
thank
so.
you for bringing it up, Patty, because it got me to open the Bible and really just kind of play with these metaphors.
Mm.
So thank you for that
Oh
because it
yeah.
opened up that yeah, God wasn't probably that mean of a God in the new in the Old
We
Testament.
interpret, yeah, we
Yeah.
interpret that, but it's, yeah, there's definitely
Yeah,
more to
there's
it.
definitely I feel definitely different. Definitely it feels
Yeah,
different to me.
yeah,
So
me too.
thank you all.
It's
I
an
appreciate you all
incredible.
listening.
Yes. Yeah, an incredible story. And again, we're not
Yeah.
experts, but
Go.
hopefully this was something of value to you. Um
Yeah.
as always, we so appreciate you being with us
Yeah.
today. If you haven't already, hit the like button. If this was something that you enjoyed or you got something from, hit that like button, subscribe to our channel. We would love to continue to bring
Yeah.
you all kinds of new content as we live into it.
Yes, as we live into it. Stay magical, everyone.
Stay magical, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Bye.